Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing down the absolute latest strategies and the raw science behind YouTube in 2026. We're going to look really closely at the actual mechanics of digital attention. Dissecting exactly how content grabs our eyes, holds our minds, and, increasingly, how smart systems are actually learning to moderate that very same attention. Let's get right into it.
Okay, a professional scriptwriter recently dropped a quote that just perfectly captures the modern creator's ultimate dilemma: optimization versus value. Content makers today are armed with these insane tools that can literally hack a viewer's retention rate to perfection. But as this creator points out, choosing that hyper-optimized route can sometimes mean stripping away the authenticity, the actual soul of the work.
So, to really understand this balance, here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with winning the initial click, then move into scripting the deeper problem. After that, we're looking at the real danger of fast pacing, exploring how to build safe comfort content, and finally diving into AI and the new standards. All right, Section 1, winning the initial click. We have to talk about packaging and thumbnails first, because honestly, before anyone can hear a script's soul, they actually have to choose to click. And the absolute secret to earning that click? It all lies in the curiosity gap. You're basically making a psychological promise to the viewer. Think about it, your thumbnail isn't just a digital poster, it's a promise. When the viewer sees a missing piece of information, maybe a surprising result, or a crazy before and after, their brain literally demands that they click to close that loop. To actually pull off that gap effectively, your title and thumbnail absolutely must act as a single, cohesive unit. It's all about showing versus telling and never ever repeating the same text. Like if your title says 5 budget lighting setups, your thumbnail shouldn't just repeat the words budget lighting. Instead, it should scream something like under $50 right next to a shot of the gear. See how they work together? That's how you create that irresistible curiosity gap.
Now, to make this whole thing work on a tiny mobile screen, you really have to stick to some strict composition rules. Get this, using expressive faces alone can boost your click-through rate by 20 to 30%. That is massive. You're designing for a tiny format where you literally only have room for 2, maybe 3 visual elements tops. When you keep the text under 4 words and use high-contrast, bold colors, the algorithm sees that higher click-through rate, and boom, it compounds into way wider distribution.
Moving right along to Section 2, scripting the deeper problem. So you've won their attention. Awesome. Now, you have to earn their time.
The second they click, you've got to ask yourself, what is the deeper problem here? Look, every decent script has a surface problem, say an editing tutorial. But to truly connect, we have to figure out the hidden emotional struggle. Are they just struggling with the editing software, or are they actually battling perfectionism? When you identify that deeper emotional layer, you elevate a video from being just another generic tutorial to a real experience that resonates on a deeply human level. Making that connection requires absolute goal alignment. If a viewer clicks because they want to learn a skill and your actual goal is to teach them that skill, perfect, your gears are turning together. But if your hidden agenda is to spring a jack-in-the-box surprise and funnel them into some massively overpriced course, well, the viewer's subconscious alarm bells are going to go off instantly. A truly great script is built on the foundation of genuine goal alignment.
So how do you build that trust? Well, viral creators are actually adapting the 4,000-year-old hero's journey framework to add real stakes to what would otherwise be totally ordinary tutorials. Instead of just rattling off a linear list of facts, you start at the status quo, you hit a problem, face a crisis point where you show some real vulnerability, and then finally find a resolution that actually shifts your perspective. This exact structure is what makes viewers see themselves in the creator.
And ultimately, authentic creators flat out refuse to hack their pacing charts if it means sacrificing the very soul of their script. Look, an AI can easily optimize a script to just blast you with constant dopamine hits and rage bait, but ripping out the slower, deeply educational moments just to avoid a tiny little dip in watch time, that absolutely destroys the long-term value and the hard-earned trust of a channel. Which brings us to Section 3. The danger of fast pacing. What actually happens when those high-speed, dopamine-hacking retention tactics go totally unchecked, and worse, are pointed directly at the most rapidly developing minds in our society? Guys, the data here is genuinely alarming. Research out of SRI Education discovered that a staggering 73% of online videos watched by young children feature rapid, fast-paced cuts. When looking at a huge data set of online videos consumed by kids under 3, researchers found an overwhelming presence of these aggressive editing styles.
These are literally categorized as persuasive design features, intentionally engineered to artificially sustain attention. The scientific reality is just stark. Exposing 4-year-olds to highly stimulating cartoons actively diminishes their executive function and problem-solving skills. The findings from Lillard and Peterson show that just 9 minutes, literally 9 minutes, of fast-paced, rapid-cut media was enough to make young children perform significantly worse on cognitive tests, especially when compared to kids who just engaged in slow-paced drawing or calm educational content. Fast pacing fundamentally alters how a child processes information. Section 4. Building safe, comfort content. The whole platform is naturally evolving to protect its most vulnerable viewers. And honestly, the 2026 content landscape is aggressively shifting away from all that fast-paced chaos. Because of everything we just talked about, the 2026 algorithm is actively prioritizing and rewarding what we call comfort content, while strictly filtering out those chaotic, retention-hacking edits. This is huge in the kids category. The platform is looking for stability. It rewards repeatable formats, familiar characters, and just calm pacing. At the same time, it is quietly suppressing videos that rely on overstimulating camera movements or sudden, loud tone shifts. And because of this massive shift, creators are now basically required to strictly segment their storytelling by age to make sure the pacing actually matches the child's cognitive development. You just can't mix all the age groups together anymore. Toddlers absolutely require soft motion and extreme simplicity, whereas preschoolers, well, they benefit from gentle repetition and very basic story arcs. If a creator mixes these up, it completely confuses the parents, tanks the retention, and the algorithm just limits the video's reach right then and there. All right, which brings us to our final section, Section 5, AI and the new standards. With millions of videos being uploaded, manual human review is completely impossible. So let's see how technology is stepping up to automatically enforce these new safety standards at an incredible scale. To actually manage this massive volume, researchers are leaning into this brilliant concept called optical flow. This tech lets them objectively measure the intensity of a video's motion, literally pixel by pixel. So rather than having a human sit there and subjectively guess if a video feels too fast, optical flow tracks the literal movement of the pixels across consecutive frames. It perfectly captures the pure speed, the direction, and the overall visual intensity of whatever is happening on screen. All of that optical flow data then feeds directly into an automated AI pipeline. Researchers actually train a machine learning model using these exact 6 iterative steps, pulling from real infant viewing data. They split the data, trained a neural network to recognize the optical flow patterns of human-annotated fast and slow videos, and then they test it relentlessly. This whole process takes these abstract, fuzzy pacing guidelines and turns them into a strict, scalable mathematical model. And you know what? The results totally speak for themselves. 85%. This optical flow model achieved a massive 85% accuracy in detecting fast-paced videos entirely on its own. Think about what that means. We now have the technological capability to automatically flag and filter out content that uses that aggressive, rapid-fire pacing we know is detrimental to early cognitive development. It's a real game changer. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final, kind of provocative thought about where digital creation is heading. If machines can now perfectly analyze our pixels, our pacing, and our click-through rates, well, the only thing left for us to optimize is the underlying soul of our stories. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this deep dive. I highly encourage you to keep questioning the mechanics of the content you consume every single day.